Sorry, was that not what I was supposed to? It felt like the right moment to.
Oh, man. Seemed good. All right. So we are live on all the things.
Great.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of Magic Mics, proudly sponsored by our Patreon supporters and CoolStuffInc.com, where you can find cool stuff in stock every day, and our co-sponsor CardHoarder.com, offering the best inventory prices and delivery of cards for Magic Online. I'm Evan Irwin, and we get started each week by saying hello to my two co-hosts, Aaron Campbell.
Hey.
Ruben Bressler.
Oh, hi, neighbor. How are you?
Hey, guys. So we had to skip last week because Thanksgiving was Thanksgiving. So much travel, so many things to do. I took, I more or less kind of disconnected as I went up to Tennessee and Virginia and family and all that good stuff. Came back, things happened. And
before we get into the nonsense, though, I want to give thanks.
I think some good thanks now. First of all, at PAX, I met many a viewer / listener, and that was great. Thanks everybody. So that was terrific, and giving thanks otherwise. You know, everyone's healthy, family's great. Christmas is coming. I'm almost done with that shopping, which is really weird because I never got all this done before.
And you have a lot of kids to shop for.
#5kids. Working on that draft set. Yeah, so that's good. I'm very thankful for that, and of course for you guys and for all you listening or watching at home.
Thank you. I have a couple people to thank. So I've been receiving care packages recently. I received two. The first one that I received is from the gentleman behind Budget MTG Decks. They've become my favorite YouTube channel to frequent for cheap EDH decks. They are from the Netherlands, and so they sent me a care package of delicious treats, which I'm probably going to mispronounce. So the first thing they sent me is Kruidnoten, some sort of granola-ish stuff.
That's kind of what happens when you get things from overseas. It's like there's things you eat, you're not really sure what they are. Is that a nougat? Is that a nut? I don't know.
We had a great episode of In Contention where one of our listeners from Japan or South Korea sent us a bunch of the weird Kit Kat flavors, and we just did a whole episode on weird Kit Kat flavors, and it was amazing. Okay. I'm pretty sure Kruidnoten is one of the werewolves from the original Innistrad, right?
I don't know, but it makes a good drag name. So okay, so I also have a Speculas right here, very very Klingon, love it. Not really sure what it is either. And last but not least, if you're gonna go to the Netherlands, you need stroopwafels. I've never had a stroopwafel before.
Oh,
I've heard it's changed. Look at how thick
they're amazing. Yeah, they're great.
Thick, 2 C's. And then I had a young man who wanted to remain anonymous, but I've run into him at several events, and he's always been very lovely. Asked for my address. I was pretty sure he wasn't a creeper. And I was right because he sent me...
Wow.
Life from the Lone Playmat for those
playing along at home. This is from the European Legacy Championships in April. This is extremely rare. I've literally spent the whole year looking for it. I've trolled like every vendor booth, begged vendors to call me if they ever got one, and he wouldn't even take my money. I was like, "How much do you want for it?" And he says, "I love your show. Keep it." And I'm like,
"That's amazing."
Guys. And so yeah, care packages. We have the best damn fans and friends anywhere. So thank you so much.
Wow.
Well, I'm thankful for my health. Some of you may know that I was in the hospital recently.
Ruben,
I had
killing us, buddy.
Killing myself, honestly.
Hey-o. I'm saying stuff like that.
I had another diabetic ketoacidosis attack.
Not that.
It's not great, and I need to take better care of myself. And also, even if when I do, my health is always just going to be an issue. But luckily, I was home and I had my family to be able to, hop on it. And my dad is a doctor, or not a doctor, but he might as well be a doctor. His nickname was Doc in high school for a variety of reasons, but one of them was because he just could identify when something was wrong, and something was wrong. So, but I'm better now, and I'm very thankful to have my health, my loving family, great fans like y'all. I finally sent out MTG Packfoil's water bottle that I owed him from back when I correctly identified a Dungeons and Dragons map behind me all those episodes ago. And yeah, I love you all.
Awesome. Well, it's going to be a pretty interesting show. We're not going to do a giveaway this week. It just doesn't really feel right. There's a lot of feelings, I guess, feel rightness of the moment right now. and again, just kind of to try to catch up on all this stuff and sort of where we're at. At the end of the day, no matter what happens and how you frame the story, Christine Sprankle had enough. She posted the tweet. She said that she was not going to go to GB Portland. She was not going to do cosplay for Magic any longer. But she called out directly that MTG headquarters / Unsleeved Media has made my life hell this whole year with his unnecessary videos and tweets about me and other members of Magic. This essentially led to a tidal wave of response. First, to learn sort of what was being said and what was being said about Christine. And so there are videos that you kind of look up, and I feel like, I try to be as absolutely fair as possible in terms of like laying out what happened in the story. Well, it appears that most of the issues around Christine from MTG headquarters, from Jeremy, the man who runs those those channels, was that first of all, cosplay is lingerie, which he says, in which the way they sort of frame that is that because Anita Sarkeesian, who's very much a very vocal feminist, was saying that she did a whole series of videos about how there's scantily clad women all over, for example, role-playing games and things, and that's lingerie. And so if cosplayers are dressing up as role-playing characters, then that means they're dressing up in lingerie. That no one cares about cosplay. Except, maybe like Rolling Stone. If only Rolling Stone cared, and would put someone in cosplay on the front of one of the most important articles about Magic in a long time.
Don't confuse me with the facts.
Just saying. And otherwise didn't like the fact that she was requesting help with her Patreon, that she was trying to do cosplay, if not full time, at the very least highly, sort of help her out with her day-to-day income. Mm-hmm. And so that kind of happened. And so at that point, it became a question of, well, who is this person? If you don't know who MTG headquarters is, if you have no idea what this person does or where they're coming from, there was a pretty fantastic sort of roundup of his history by user Rarer Monsters on Reddit. And I would note that I think at some point in time in this show, we may have a little bit more harsher language than usual. I try to be very much family friendly. However, as some things will be quoted, as some things will be referenced to, there's a good chance that we may be a little bit more PG-13 than usual. That said, the sort of way he frames it was way back. He was a content creator with some respect, making unboxing videos and whatnot. Gabby Sparks made a well thought out testimonial about her experience and difficulties being a woman in the online creator community. The fact that she gets harassment, she gets sort of names called at her, she gets said that she's one thing or whatever. Other creators told him, so there was a lot of positivity rather, but he felt the need to say that she should just quote toughen up, and that's a lot of sort of what you hear is these. You need thicker skin. You need to toughen up. You need to get over it. You need to understand that this is what you should be getting when you're famous, quote unquote, when you're well known, a public figure. So when other creators told him he was out of line, instead of apologizing, he dug in his heels and went, I'm not an asshole. The problem is political correctness. Free speech. I'm a brave truth warrior, and started making random offensive jokes targeting vulnerable members of the community, of which he has essentially continued to do, for a very long time. People talk to Wizards, Wizards explained that, at one point he got preview cards, and it was like, why is this person getting preview cards? Well, Wizards explained that there was a PR agency who was handing those out. Once it came to light that he was doing sort of very negative things in the community, those privileges got taken away. He doesn't get preview cards any longer. People stopped watching his channel, and he entered sort of what they call the edgelord is a nice way to say it. The edgelord spiral, and turned his entire content into a screed about how he's a victim of censorship, SJW culture is destroying the game, and so on and so forth. Any mainstream fans remaining left, but he developed a small dedicated pod of these what I describe as edgelords. Also known, aka it could be trolls. AKA it could be people who really enjoy the fact that they either get under people's skin, they like to sort of tell it like it is, they like to throw out their truths on people, so on and so forth. this toxic feedback loop made him act out worse and worse as he started to believe it. All this stuff that he kept saying, he kind of convinced himself as time went on. He tried renaming himself Unsleeved Media to reinvent himself. It didn't work. And that at this point, the community left him behind. And so he takes out his frustrations on community members who he blames for his downfall. He's orchestrated serious harassment against Wedge at the Manosaurus and encouraged his fans to do the same. He's gone as far to try to sabotage panels because Wedge or Jimmy was there. And when someone calls him on it, he always edits old tweets or posts or claims that, and this was another thing that kind of kept going back with, dude, it's just a joke. We're just kidding here. Like, I wouldn't do anything. I wouldn't actually go and try to mess with somebody. That's crazy. Why would I do that? Even though I said or insinuated that I would do that. He acts filthy and rude to women, especially Christine. And the comments are disgusting and toxic in every aspect. He encourages his squad of edgelord people to echo it. And this is, of course, on top of all the other sexual and personal harassment that Christine Sprankle gets anyway. Like, you know, this is also one of those things of, if you're a girl on the internet, you get treated differently than the white dude on the internet.
And so, that is just a thing. It is a fact that I can't imagine that is even being disputed. But you know, that's the world in which we live. And I can attest to the fact that you know, I worked with Jeremy for a little while. I've talked about it on this show a little bit. Right after I got fired from Star City Games, I was streaming a little bit. I was doing a little bit of content on my own. And Jeremy approached me and said, "Hey, I'd like for you to write articles for this website that I'm trying to build. I'm trying to build a new, like another Star City Games or another Channel Fireball, another content site. And here are some, you know, I have this successful YouTube channel, which he does. I mean, he's got a lot of subscribers. He's top 10, top 5 Magic the Gathering channels in terms of subscribers. You know, they're pretty clickbaity, like was mentioned there. But you know what's easy to watch is, you know, pack openings and stuff like that. So that can be fun too. And so he approached me and was like, "Hey, I like what you do. Can you like do an article series?" And you know, we worked it out, and I wrote for him for maybe a month and a half before he decided to take the project, I guess, in a different direction. He decided he didn't want to invest in that particular direction anymore. And so I was like, "Hey, that's cool. You know, no hard feelings," and we sort of separated our ways. It was after that he became the subject of tonight's program and the center, one of the centerpieces in all of this recent hubbub. But I want, real quickly, before we move on any further, any deeper, I want to, since we're still focused right here in the epicenter of the topic, losing Christine Sprankle, the guest of honor at the first HasCon, is atrociously bad for Magic the Gathering, regardless of why she left, who's at fault, etc. The fact that she is no longer a part of our community is a net loss in terms of dollars for Wizards of the Coast and in terms of in terms of the overall happiness of their feelings within Magic the Gathering. And I wanted to just say out loud, because I'm not sure that that's gotten focused on enough, is that, you know, there's a lot of noise around this, and that the noise is the bad part. I understand that. But I really wanted to say that Christine Sprankle was a very vital part of the Magic the Gathering community that made this place better, that made this place a place where people wanted to be and join and start playing Magic and get interested in Magic in ways that maybe weren't necessarily making the Pro Tour, which is very important. Her net positive on the environment cannot be understated. And I just wanted to.
I would argue that, you know, in the fact that I've set up, you know, sort of promotions for Grand Prix and things, and invited cosplayers to attend these events. The idea of Grand Prix events or any large Magic event is that it's greater than the sum of its parts. And one of those things is like, Christine's not going to be there, and that's going to affect things like how much. You don't know, but again, when something's not really there, it's hard to prove a negative. But I know when she is there, and I know when, for example, at GP Detroit, when she came out as Avison,
I was there.
That was insane. Like everybody, like that was. It's about the art coming alive, and it's about her representing that, and also inspiring others. Because now that she's decided to leave, if someone were to come to Magic and come to the Magic community and learn about Magic and learn about the Magic cosplay kind of community, and then see what happened, that person can be like, you know what, I'm out. I'm not gonna relive her life and relive all the stuff that she went through, because that's not good for me, and just mentally, health wise.
Yeah, and that was my first response when I saw everything happen, is that when you see a woman who is visible in Magic or even visible in gaming, odds are that she's developed a set of protocols or coping mechanisms just to deal. You know, I like to call it the ride. You know, when you go from having 500 followers to 1,000 followers to when the rocket keeps going up, you have to make changes to your life, because you can't keep doing things the way you've been doing. You know, I pride myself on being a pretty open person, sometimes being a little too open, but, you know, I learned a long time ago that I can't have a public Facebook page, because I need to have some place where I can have just something to center me, something for, you know, where I can maybe say how much I don't care for something, or how difficult something is, you know, and you need to have something to kind of anchor you. Emma Handy, for example, you know, when I first met Emma, she didn't have that big of a following, and I've seen Emma make changes to her lifestyle because she's had to, adjust to her visibility. You'll notice if you watch Emma stream, you don't see her chat. Her chat is completely blacked out because she's had issues with trolls and whispers, and she decided that rather than have people see that, she would rather they just see a black box. Mrs. Mulligan, you will almost never see her stream without her husband as a mod for her. I won't go live with at least one mod in my chat, because I've had people make throwaway handles and things of that nature. I don't have a personality page. You know, a lot of people that are visible have like their personal page, and then they have like their entertainer page or whatever. I won't have that, because I know the kind of things that it might attract. And so these are all adjustments that I have had to make, and I assure you, any visible woman out there has those protocols. MTA has them, Emma has them, Athena has them, Gabby has them, Christine had them, and this isn't a surprise to somebody like me, because we all have things we've had to do to deal with everything that comes with being visible, and sure. and we shouldn't have to. Like it's not a slight on Christine to say that like she couldn't hack it or whatever, but no. It's a lot, and I don't blame someone for saying I can't do this.
She also was. And I'm not being facetious at all here. She was the most visible person in the Magic the Gathering, not working for Wizards of the Coast, and probably overall, she was the most visible person. She was in Rolling Stone. She was constantly all over Kotaku and IGN and, all those types of big websites. If you didn't see Christine Sprankle representing Magic the Gathering, I don't know what to tell you, because she was the most visible person.
You also have to I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, you're good.
I was just going to say, you also have to remember that the feedback that she was getting was so much more personal because it revolved around her body. You know, her being a cosplayer is very physical. And so a lot of the critiques she would receive had to do with that. You know, if people don't necessarily like a streamer, you really only see half of us. You know, you hear our voice, maybe you don't like our voice, maybe you don't like our play style, but you know, the whole point of the cosplayer is that you are literally putting yourself out there. And so it does feel like it's much more personal when someone's critiquing your thighs or your waist or your whatever. You know, it's one thing to say you don't like the person necessarily, but when their body's on display and being put up for consumption, that's a lot. Like, I don't know. I'm glad that I couldn't wear half the outfit she wears, knowing that I would be, up for debate like that. Like that's a different kind of criticism.
And just real quick, because I want to keep moving here, but however, I just want to know real quick, because it's really weird. This point is really strange to me, where people are like, "But she got paid for it." Like, come on now. And you watch The Dark Knight, the Joker tells you, if you're good at something, never do it for free. Like, she was really good at it. She was super good at it. And when she got started,
being paid, and then there's making a living. Like, Christine, if you look at the settings around her, like when she made her first video, she wasn't living in like a mansion with 3 cars and dogs. I mean, she was barely getting by at some point. Sure. Like, we have Patreons. Like, I have enough to like pay my cell phone bill or something, but we're not balling or anything.
Yeah.
Like, let's be clear.
Right. I mean,
right. We get paid to do this, but we aren't making a living doing this.
There's a hole in that wall. There's a tiny little hole under my island if you look close enough. Like we're okay, but we're not, you know.
Right.
We're fine.
And the other thing is like in ignoring all of that, man. If only we had a reason to be nice, we wouldn't have to just be nice for no reason.
Right, as if to say that because somebody is paid, they should just shut up and take it. Like, well, I paid you, I should be able to call you this, and it's like, right. It's not how any of this works.
It's really not. So next sort of part of the story was that the professor made a video called "What We Owe to Each Other," where he talks a lot about sort of what some really very fact-based, evidence-based. Here is tweets. Here are videos. Here are screen captures of things that have happened and ways that that essentially MTG headquarters has treated people. And it's the sort of the narrative of it is that, well, there's no, because he wasn't harassing people publicly right in front of them or something, there's no direct evidence. You know, which is weird because that doesn't make a lot of sense to me. And when you watch this video, and he responded to this video because, you know, I'm trying to get the full picture here. I'm trying to put myself in the mindset that it makes any of this make any sense from Jeremy's point of view. And that he made a video saying, "The professor owes me a sincere apology." Are you high? For real? Seriously,
Bless his heart.
I can't because the professor said nothing ill of you, and if you think that's a hit video, have you watched your own videos? Okay.
Yeah, it
was a call for civility.
It was a call for civility, and I take particular issue with suggesting that the professor would instigate anything in any way. Like, I would have a hard time believing that he could kill a fly. So
he was adamant too at the beginning of the video that in 4 years of making content, he's never made a hit piece. And he also said that he demonetized that video, that video was not something that he was looking to generate any income on. And I think he put enough good faith forward to show that that wasn't the case. And I felt like that at the end of the video, and also at the end of my tweets that we'll get to here later, but it was ultimately saying, hey, could you think about other people? Could you think just 2 seconds, put yourself in their shoes? Could you get that empathy? It's an emotion. There's a whole thing there. It's called, if I do something or say something to a person and they react a certain way, I can understand why they're reacting this way. I can get it because I can kind of put myself around. And sometimes some people have very difficult times with that, and I understand that. And that's what I'm trying to ultimately say. And so just recently, and this is my best sort of example of this, is that he was banned from Twitter for a week because he ran out a gay slur against somebody, and when he quoted their tweet, and that's all he did, just ran out slur, the end. Well, he got banned for a week. When he comes back, literally, the first thing that he says on his Twitter when he returns is, "Finally got to address over 10,000 notifications. This should be easy. I don't give a F about your feelings." Yeah, we got that point, okay? Right. We understood that you don't care about how you're making people feel, and that's weird. That's ultimately, I feel like, the nexus, the core of the nucleus of this atom of weird, like, strange harassment that he is invoking, that he is inspiring. And if you just don't care how anyone feels, then it's hard for me to say that we're going to have a really sort of basic, reasonable, logical conversation that your actions have reactions.
I also want to, at this point, mention that I understand that our issue here in the Magic community takes place within the larger world, and that this is not a unique problem within gaming or within our popular culture. And that the empathy divide that you suggest is not uncommon in, I guess we'll use this word for the first time, in troll culture on the internet. Trolls are. I was reading an article recently in Psychology Today because I'm a very old man. Just get over it. I was reading an article in Psychology Today that trolls are more likely to have lower empathy levels, among other things. And this was like a college study done by some researchers named Natalie Sest and Evita Marsh for ScienceDirect.com. I can paste the article in chats if I can. And that this is classic this is classic out of the playbook of a lot of what we've seen before in the past, from Gamergate and what have you, of like we were talking about earlier, demanding an apology from the people that you've wronged, things like that, misdirection, saying the things that you need to say so that your followers understand what they need to do without having the liability of actually having to respond to your thoughts and actions. And I understand that this takes place in a larger picture, but we only have an hour and 15 minutes. And so at this, I get that we could do 85 episodes on this, but I think that we don't need to. But that's just a milestone I wanted to point out.
Can I expand on something the professor said in his video? Because I watched the video and there was something he brought up that really hit home for me, and I kind of want to hammer that point home for other people. So when you block somebody on social media, you are basically creating a boundary. You are establishing a boundary, and you are basically saying to somebody, I'm really not interested in what's going on with you. I don't think that blocking or muting is inherently negative. I feel like there's this weird stigma around doing either of those things. I've always looked at social media as sort of my happy place, and this is what I need to do in order to cultivate that. So I'm not surprised. It doesn't surprise me when I see people going to Wizards of the Coast and going to Patreon, which we'll certainly talk about later, because they feel like they don't know what else to do. We've done what you're supposed to do. We've reported the tweets. We've blocked. We've muted. We've run blockchains. We've done block botting. We've flagged videos. We've asked, can you please leave me alone? We've told you, please leave me alone. It's essentially you're constantly creating boundaries and having someone just trample over them one by one by one. It's a very helpless feeling. It's not like people are going straight to WotC or going straight to Patreon. We don't know what else to do. And you hear this a lot in situations where people are feeling harassed. It's, well, what have you done or what did you do? We did everything we were supposed to do at this point, and it's a very bad feeling. And to be clear, I'm really okay with people not liking me. There's a lot to not like. I get it. I'm loud. I'm a bitch. I play Dredge. I probably didn't shake your hand at the Standard Showdown. I might have blocked your brother on Twitter. I get it.
You play Dredge. I love it.
I get it. I'm really okay with people disagreeing with me. The very nature of this show, for a lot of people who don't know, we don't know what we're talking about till like 30 minutes before we record. This is a completely unscripted show. A lot of times Evan calls on you and it feels just like it did when you were in school, and you better have an answer. So we're gonna be wrong. We're not gonna know what a card does. We're probably not gonna understand what a deck did. We might have even gotten the winner of a GP wrong. I'm completely fine with that. But there are other people in this community that I don't see it for and who don't see it for me, and I can be at an event with them and we're fine. I've had disagreements with Cedric Phillips. I've had disagreements with Jim Davis. None of those interactions has come anywhere close to what I and other people have experienced through the years. This isn't just simple disagreement. This isn't just simple, I don't like you. We're way past that point, and it's just really not okay. It's really just about not respecting boundaries or ignoring boundaries.
Yeah, and this kind of brings me to, at this point, there began to be sort of this, people were making statements. People were coming out and saying like, hey, this is wrong, this is bad, this needs to change. I came back from essentially, the holiday weekend, and I tried to just absorb everything that happened. Wizards tweeted over the weekend that, that harassment is not okay and we want a positive community. I'm like, okay, I'm trying to learn everything I can. So then I put out, a fairly long, I've never done sort of a tweet storm before. Literally in my, I've been on Twitter like 10 something years now.
And I don't normally like tweet storms. Normally I'd block your ass for that, but I was like, this is a good thread, so we'll let this happen.
I tried try to make it, if I'm going to use my one time, right? But, so I put it out there, and I felt like if you were to read my statement, all my statement, first of all, I try to note that I am not without sin here, that the Oliver 2 thing blew up, and I wish it hadn't done it in the way it had.
None of us are, and we own that.
Right, absolutely. And it's not saying that anyone is a perfect person. And so, but at the end of it, I was just like, can you just put yourself in like her shoes for like 4 seconds? I swear to God, just a little tiny, just a little bit of empathy. That's all I'm asking for. Try to, be a force for good, be a force for positivity. And instead, he decided to have him and or his followers try to look up personal aspects of my life and use them against me, to literally ignore everything I said and said, hey, look at this stuff that I heard about, much of it being wrong, by the way. Literally to the point where he said that he had spoken to my ex-wife. Spoiler alert, he never spoke to my ex-wife. So, because at that point he says, well, wait, if you are, in one of their favorite phrases is virtue signaling, also known as, could you not be a dick for like 5 seconds of your life? If you're doing that and you're saying, hey man, could you just be like a little nicer to people? Suddenly he needs to go find something to try to take this sort of moral high ground. I'm not without morals. I don't know how good and right and wrong works because the things I've done that have literally nothing to do with what we're talking about, like actual zero. It had nothing to do with what I said, and that is that's unfortunate, and it's sad that is sort of where they went to try to make their point in retaliation.
Well, you brought up something I want to kind of touch on a little bit, because we saw this today, in fact, and we saw this yesterday too. And so the issue of sort of perfection, the idea that, if you're not perfect, you can't comment on things like this, or that you can't want more for yourself, or you can't want more for your community. And Efro actually wrote a really great post. Eric Froelich wrote a really great post yesterday that addressed some of the missteps that he's made, and he's owned them, and he's willing to be a force for good. And when the letter from the pros came out, which we'll talk about, there was also some issue of possibly a couple of those people maybe not having the most sterling reputations, and I don't either. But I don't think that's necessarily, I personally don't expect anybody to be perfect, because I'm not perfect. It's documented, I get it, but there has to be some growth there. If there's any sort of reflection, if the person is listening and willing to take the feedback, and we're able to look, if we're able to see some growth there, I'm willing to kind of work through that. But the issue that we're having with the couple of people who we'll talk about later in the show is that when you look at the timeline, there doesn't appear to be any growth. You're not seeing any accountability. You're not seeing any reflection. Where they are now is where they were years ago. There's nothing. And I think that's what's so infuriating to people, is like, everybody loves a comeback story, and everybody's, and people are willing to work with you. And if there's anything there, but like, you look and you're like, how are we still here with your ass? Like, what? How is there nothing? Like, I think that's where a lot of the frustration comes from, is there's no growth, there's no progress, it's just a line, and that line doesn't budge.
Mm-hmm. And for what it's worth, I'll just note here that if someone like Jeremy had said, or still wants to say, hey, I'm willing to listen.
Absolutely.
Maybe I've been doing things.
There's still a redemption arc available.
So there's here. I've always wanted to, and I've said, I'm sorry, I've always, and I did it in the tweet, I'm like, I've just felt like if you could just talk a little sense into him, I felt like just a little sense would go a long way.
So my friend Chris, who I co-hosted the Girlfriend Bracket with, and is one of my best friends, and has been instrumental in my own personal growth as well, because somewhere down the line, I got this reputation of only having yes people around me. Let me tell you, Chris has called me out. Hallie has called me out. Have you seen my friends? I don't get away with anything, let me tell you. But Chris can see the good in just about anybody. And I remember when his efforts had really started ramping up, specifically towards me. Chris does not live too far away from Jeremy. And Chris had tried reaching out to him on several occasions and was like, look, I don't know what's going on. Let's go for a drink. Let's have coffee, no cameras. Nobody, let you and I'm going into this with a clean slate. And I want to believe that there's something in there. And on at least 3 occasions, he's either turned Chris's invitation down or has made plans and canceled. And Chris is the kind of person where if you're feeling misunderstood, or if you're feeling like you really need some redemption, you want Chris on your side, because Chris can see the good in anybody, and Chris is willing to work with you. And the idea that the one person in the world who could really give you a shot and really hear you out. We both find it fascinating that, you know, Chris has gone into it with a completely unbiased opinion and is willing to just kind of lay it all out there, and he just won't. Emma has also spent a lot of time trying to reason with people, has again put the invitation out there and was told that he wouldn't meet with her unless cameras were involved. And so there have been attempts to be like, hey, let's put all this aside and really try to get to the core of it, and he's just not interested. And
so
the problem is that at this point it's his brand, right? Like, there was probably a point where we could say we can go back, but at this point it makes more monetary sense for him in terms of subscribers and tweets to keep going down this path now. I think it makes more business sense for him to do this, and that's really scary.
Well, I want to keep moving on if we can, because we got a little bit more ways to go. So Wizards came out with a tweet that didn't say a whole lot, and I called that out myself. Yeah. I felt like. So and then they're like, we're going to post something. I'm like, okay, great. They're going to post something. It's going to be great. Thank you, Wizards. It's awesome. And then they posted something which said basically nothing. And And I get it. Look, and let me just say, I get it from Wizards' perspective. My take on the article from Elaine Chase. First of all, clearly I love the sentiment. You know, I love the fact that here's all the tools. Here's where we have an email address you can contact us by, and that's terrific. Don't get me wrong. But what I'm saying is nothing. They took no real action. And here's the way that I can see that. One, I think it's a legal thing. I think their legal team said you cannot name anyone when you're making this kind of statement, because at that point, you know, there's a corporation coming after a person and blah blah blah. I get that. However, here's what I felt like would have been the optimal choice, and we were talking about this in the pre-show, which was had Wizards posted that action, taken action on harassment and bullying, and then without even having to reference it, without even having to point it out, at the same time that article is published, Jeremy is added to the DCI ban list for, let's just say, the same amount of time that the ass crack guy at GP. Whatever, Charlotte, I think it was. Richmond, sorry. GP Richmond guy, that dude. Same amount, sure, whatever. You know, and that's it, right? So that's both your chocolate and your peanut butter. That's like, oh, cool, you're making this cinnamon, blah, blah, and like, oh, wait, here's the action part. And then you stick them together and it all makes sense. Now, at the same time, it does certainly appear that the DCI is investigating Jeremy because he got an email. And I also I know that Wizards knows this, but literally every single letter that every word that you send him, he is going to post online and show to God and everybody. So make sure you're aware of that. I'm sure they are, but it doesn't matter. The point is that I can imagine this is ultimately going to end up on him, him being on the DCI ban list for harassment and or some sort of their tangential thing about it. But ultimately, this was Wizards saying like, hey, we're taking action by saying you shouldn't totally do that, and here's a few ways to report when people do that. Okay, I understand. After that, there was Boogie2988, who has...
Now we're widening the circle, right? Like, we started very focused.
Yes.
Then it got to a slightly wider bit of the Magic community. Boogie is a big deal. This is a YouTuber with millions of subscribers. This is a huge person at this point in popular culture, not just in the Magic community.
Right, 4.3 million subscribers. Wow. He's been doing YouTube a long time. He's also looking great, by the way. If you happen to be watching this for any reason,
he has lost a ton of weight.
Yeah, he had surgery. He's looking awesome. I think that's great, so he can be around longer. And ultimately, and he notes that he too has talked to and or worked with or chatted with Jeremy over the years, and that things have kind of changed over time. But ultimately, he knew that Jeremy felt like, and again, the way I saw it was that when he wasn't kind of being Mr. Edgelord King whatever BS, that he was just kind of like another dude who was pretty decent. He liked Magic and he liked opening stuff and let's have a good time and whatever.
And he made good content.
And people enjoyed it, and that's ultimately what I think, why he was as successful as he was. But one of the things that I disagreed with the way that Boogie handled it was that I felt like he did the, both sides have points. And I don't think that's a thing. That's not a thing for me. It is, this side is incorrect. And we need to tell them in ways that they will understand that what they did was wrong. The way they're acting is affecting people in a very negative and hurtful way. That's what I feel like our job is. And not that, hey, they had some points because some people think cosplay's lingerie. No, man. It doesn't matter. Like, and if in anything, for what it's worth, if you felt like cosplay was lingerie, you don't have to go after the cosplayers. You could just talk about cosplay as a thing, you know, as a thing that you think about, as a concept. You don't have to say this person doing this thing, and this is why I don't like them, and this is why you should go crap on them. There's different ways of speaking about things, because it's not always about attacking people, but it's kind of always about attacking
And it is
people.
about agency. You know, that's something that, you know, that my friend Adrian loves to toss that word around, is agency. You know, the difference between, you know, a card or an avatar is that the person is choosing to wear this. You know, when these women and these men go to events, when they go to the Planeswalker Summit, they are making the choice to wear that skirt or that dress, and they're doing it of their own accord. No one's making them do that. You know, when Christine chooses to be Liliana, it's my understanding that she chooses what she gets to cosplay as. Starseed's not telling her, you need to be Liliana for a weekend. Put that on and get you a zombie and get out there. It's like, Christine, we want you here. Let us know what you want to be, and we'll put it on the banner. Thanks. She's the one saying, I'm going to give you a little belly, I'm going to give you a little boobie, and it's my choice, and it ain't your boobie, and it's fine. And that's what gets left out of the conversations, specifically the cosplay is lingerie conversation, is that it's their choice. It's their body. They are choosing to do it. And as long as they're not being told, give them boobie, that's a whole other discussion. But it's agency that really makes the difference there.
So so next up, we had yesterday an open letter to the Magic community by various Magic pros. This was posted on TCG Player, Channel Fireball, SCG, which was signed by, I want to say, like 66 pro players, including, you know, Willie Edel, Eric Froelich, Sam Black, BBD, you know, PVDDR. Sort of
Who was that? Who was that, Evan?
The Paulo, the Vitor, the Dance Dance Revolution.
One of those 5 named Japanese,
of which
Japanese players.
They essentially were also reiterating it's unacceptable to treat people, you know, poorly, and you know, discrimination and harassment is bad, and we are sort of committing ourselves that if you see that happening or you're experiencing this, let us know, and we will make sure that, you know, this gets taken care of, and this is stopped. Now, known contrarian, God bless him.
Boy, howdy, do we...
Matt Sperling.
You know who needs a devil's advocate? The devil. And you know who's willing to do it? Matt Sperling. Yeah.
It is quite incredible the way that he can find a way to be like, well, what you did was great, but let's go ahead and say how it wasn't great. Right. Ultimately, in that, you know, he says that, you know, most of the letter is fine. However, things like something like Christine is one of the many people who's, and this is quoted in the letter, whose enthusiasm for Magic is negatively impacted by pervasive cynicism and bullying. Pervasive cynicism, probably not the best usage of words there. Just gonna say.
What does that mean?
I don't know what pervasive cynicism is, but, you know, that's a thing. And so anyway, and he kind of, you know, and they say, well, you know, all these things are equally valid, but it's unacceptable to treat any of these interests as below yours. At which point he's like, whoa, that's a bait and switch. Because people said the issue wasn't that serious. This group of pros and others on Twitter said that it was serious, and now it's time to propose a solution. We're talking about elitism, rudeness regarding cosplay and Commander as inferior hobbies, ? You know, the implication is that Christine stormed off, upset that her interests weren't being treated seriously enough, and I don't think that's the case, which is weird. And in fact, she left the community because she was being insulted personally and professionally and harassed, and that's a thing, and that's ultimately. I want to believe, you know, and the better nature of people's angels, whatever, better angel of people's natures. I can't right now. But the point is that I think, you know, they were coming from the right place. The pros were trying to say, look, this is us standing up and saying, please don't treat people this way because it's terrible. Like, it's bad, and you should stop it, and you quit that because you should know better. But anyway, so God, you know, here's Sperling. God bless him. It's just, you can't not see Sperling coming. It cracks me up. Something I felt like was almost unassailable. He's like, you know, I'll hold my beer.
Actually, give me a second. I'll find something.
Hold my law book. I'm coming to get you.
And as usual, he's not entirely wrong. However, pick your battles, right? So.
Well,
yeah, I mean, overall, I think it was a net positive. You know, pros
agree.
are sort of notorious for not getting involved with, you know, at least publicly with cultural things and things of that nature. And so, you know, to see people kind of unite for that, you know, and they have a lot of influence, let's be honest. You know, they have the ability to, you know, people play decks and play cards because these guys tell them to. You know, there's a lot of pull there. And so the collective weight there is pretty heavy. And so it'll be interesting to see if that's enough to, you know, maybe inspire some people who maybe wouldn't normally give, who wouldn't care about this issue. But if they see like their favorite pros there, you know, that I wonder if that's going to do anything.
Perhaps. And then, and Jacob Wilson, he tweeted yesterday.
That tea was hot.
and the tea was boiling, y'all. His tweet saying, typical of the privileged, brackets, men, to learn about an issue that is ever present and think they can instantly solve it themselves. He follows up with, here's a comment from an amateur player in reply to the open letter. In my experience, some of the players' actions on this list do not align with their behavior. The comment being, at least 2 of the players on this list made my experience so unenjoyable that I had no desire to play competitive Magic for quite some time. It is one thing to talk about being inclusive and another to practice inclusivity. Which was interesting because Matt Sperling, he later tweeted, he said, I know men on that quote, I know men on that list and they should be looking into the mirror first is a position multiple women have expressed. And he says he wants to own up to his history of bullying and sexism. You know, one friend described to me the sight of a bunch of men, many with very mixed records on inclusiveness, offering to be gatekeepers with no sign of self-reflection first by reference to a horror trope, quote, the call is coming from inside the house, and that I will protect you, but I have done this too, essentially, or I continue to do this. He knows he started playing it when he was 12 years old. He spent many years being bullied and ignored at school, and then bullying others at the local game store where he had some power. And I have seen this myself, if not been guilty of this myself, certainly in my younger days, where if you're better at Magic than someone, and that's one of the first times you've ever really been better at something than someone, you know what I mean? Like, clearly, I am the best player in the room for whatever reasons. And you're just like, wow, my opinion matters more. People listen to me more. And if I want to condemn or mess with somebody, I am able to do so because they know that I'm better than you at Magic. He knows he's been guilty of using the Ursa's glasses jokes and about people's appearance, especially women. He's gossiped and pigeonholed women as someone's girlfriend. And these are a few examples of how I've contributed to an unwelcoming environment for women and others in the past. See something, say something is important, but it has to start with the man in the mirror. And I think he's 100% right there. And I think that was really awesome. You know, so kudos to Sperling, because again, I think he loves to dish it, and I think he's tough but fair, and I think he sort of noted, like, you know, none of us are without sin here. And I tried to make a point when I addressed this entirely to say, hey, here was this thing that I screwed up on. I wish I could go fix that, but I didn't do it the right way. And here's Sperling saying, hey, I was bullying people when I was younger, and that was stupid, and I wish I hadn't done that. And I think that, you know, the pros on there who know that they might have treated people a little bit crappily at times could come out and say, hey, not only do I want to say this, and am I a part of this letter, I'm a part of this movement I want to be, that we should be, you know, better to everyone, essentially, that I, too, have made these mistakes. I have done this. We should not do this. We should be better than this. Because let me tell you, 10 years ago in the PTQ circuit, it got ugly sometimes. Like, it got seriously gross. And whether it's someone had to play against a girl, someone lost against a girl, so-and-so was someone's girlfriend, the girl's appearance, yada, yada. I mean, like, look, it was rough.
There's a lot of, you know, you can call it gatekeeping, or you can call it, you know, I want my space, or whatever it is. But for a lot of folks, the game store or the kitchen table or the lunch table is their area. And so when that gets invaded, they take it personally. And that sort of is that we're seeing that on a massive scale, which is, you know, unfortunate. And I completely agree with all those things you're saying. You know, again, we're not perfect people. I've certainly been guilty of the, you know, I'm the king of this corner of the comic book store kind of deal. And speaking of comic book stores, you know, they're not exactly the most welcoming places, and that's by design. You know, they're dark and dingy and have windows covered in posters, in part because they don't want you to come in. They don't want new people to come in because that's their home, that's their space. They don't want it invaded necessarily. And so that's a whole nother psychological aspect of this whole thing.
I apologized to someone today. I had a young man who had tweeted at me and was like, I see the good work that you're doing. I see what you've been through, but you also didn't shake my friend's hand at States. And I was like, I don't necessarily remember the interaction, but I was like, I've acknowledged that this has been an issue. I've discussed it on numerous podcasts. I'm truly sorry. And the interaction totally turned around. He asked me what shows I did, and I told him. And then I told him if he and his friend were ever at the same event as me, I'd be happy to apologize in person. But like I said, it's not about being perfect. It's about perfecting.
Sure.
And Sperling taking that step, and Efro taking that step, and myself taking that. We don't expect people to do that, but we do expect you to try. And the people that, like I said, the people that we're taking issue with, there doesn't appear to be any trying there.
And to be clear, I don't think that coming back to the crux of the issue, I don't think that Jeremy is the worst. I don't think that it's just that he is the most marketable. He knows how to market himself. He has skills, very clearly. If he has a very successful YouTube channel that got to the point where he wanted to hire me for a portion of the time, then clearly he's got something going for him. He had, interesting like claw machine videos and pack opening videos, which are excellent. I listen to that kind of stuff all the time. So, so he's got that sort of marketing aspect to him. That's why he's the figurehead here. That's why when he says something so loud, it comes out the loudest.
So this turd burger gets juicier, if you will.
That's our next Patreon level, folks. Get us to $1,700 a month. We'll get to turd burger level. All right, keep going.
So Travis Wu.
Right.
Here we go.
So now we're even wider in spectrum. We got out to our general culture at large. This hit the front page of Reddit. Obviously, we got on to all the various, big articles and stuff. But now it's coming after other people, right? So it's all coming to a head.
It's getting ugly because once upon a time, Travis Wu decided to make a Facebook group called Magic for Bad, which was supposed to be the polar opposite of Magic for Good. Well, guess what happened?
Yeah.
It got disgusting and gross and ugly and terrible. So
what you're saying is that it achieved its intended purpose.
It certainly got there. And the sort of the piece de resistance of the group in terms of a thing that you can point out to be like, wow, look how bad it got, was to show 9 pictures of female members of the community and then say, pick one and pack one. Because being treated like pieces of meat is exactly what females are looking for in their experience in Magic. At which point there are a ridiculous amount of terrible comments, obviously judging them 6 ways to Sunday, having nothing to do with who these people actually are, including our own wonderful Aaron Campbell.
And let me just say, maybe my priorities are a little askew here, but the thing that I'm most mad about all of this is you didn't even use a good picture. Do you know how many good selfies I posted? Do you know how many?
You got good lighting tonight. You got some of
better
that
lighting.
Convention center
lighting.
Thank you. Convention center lighting is not nice though, and so that picture that's what I took offense to. Like, you didn't even give me a chance.
Right. So yeah. So and so there was not just that per se. At one point, someone told Travis something about what about the Japanese, and he said something like, "I'm Chinese, I don't care for Japs," and something of that nature. At which point, Ricky Hayashi, who is a Japanese judge, a friend of mine, was just like, "Hey, I'm pretty pissed off about what's going on here." To which, and I love this. To which Travis Wu replied, "That's fair." Like, come on, dude. Seriously? Anyway, that just slayed me right on the floor.
Travis gets me right where I live because I want so desperately to like Travis. I so badly want, because he was like the guy with the weird decks. And he's the dude who's just got this weird attitude, and he's got this Big Lebowski vibe about him, and I'm just like, that's a guy I can get behind, right? And then he comes out with like, Hitler had decent ideas. At which point, Ruben Bressler of Jewish heritage goes, that's not a sentence you can say out loud to people on the internet, especially theoretically when you have it like written on your wrist, don't talk about Hitler, and then you just talk about Hitler. So that happens, right? That whole thing happened. You can go back and check our... That felt like a sitcom from the 90s to me. I just didn't understand how that got through without a laugh track. So that whole episode happens, and you have this... He sounds like he wants to be redeemed, and he's like, I'm sorry for what I did. I want to make it better.
And can still be. Good. Can still be.
Right, and he creates the Magic for Good Facebook group, which I was a member of until very recently. And then this comes about, and he's like, yeah, I created Frankenstein's monster, but then I saw Frankenstein's monster was starting to kill children in the local village, so I slowly backed away from Frankenstein's monster and didn't look at it anymore. Like, that was going to help, right? It's like, I'm sorry that I created Frankenstein's monster, a.k.a. Magic for Bad, because you didn't get the metaphor here.
I mean, let's be clear about how this began, how he started this. This was from December 19th, 2016. And again, quoting here... for the language, MTG mean gods, shitlords, trolls welcome, and highly encouraged. Invite your shitty friends. Let's make this the biggest / worst MTG group on Facebook. I am not making this up. He says, and P.S. F those goody two-shoes in the Magic for Good group. I mean, dude, bro.
Look, I get, since I'm gonna use one of the shit words, I guess two now, but... I appreciate a good shit post every once in a while. You know what I mean? Like, sure. It does a body good. Like, when you wake up in the morning and you see a really, like, just solidly created, well thought out combination of words and image, and you're just like, that's good work out of you, internet stranger. Like, I can appreciate that. But there is a line to be drawn, and Magic for Bad very clearly went past that line and then kept going. Like, it wasn't it was towing the line.
So going back to my friend Chris, so Chris had been in the Magic for Bad group, and I actually had several friends who were in the group just to kind of keep tabs on things. You know, those of us who've been targeted for things like this before, you know, we really needed people to sort of be on the lookout, you know, let us know, like, hey, this is going down, this is brewing, you may want to respond this way or whatever. And so Chris had been in the group for a while, and Chris has screenshots of, again, trying to reason with Travis. You see instant messages there of, hey girl, I understand the goal, but we've veered very far off course. Do you have anything to say about this? And again, you have sort of the I don't know. There's just a complete sort of shrugging. There's a complete dropping the ball there. And again, there were attempts to sort of reason with people, and they were met by apathy. They were met by just, you know, complete dismissal. And so it was like, how you didn't know, because people tried to tell you and people were nice about it, and it just got to fester and got to fester. And there are ways that pack one pick one would have been fine. You know, if it would have been like, she's really good at dredge, I really want her, she's really good at sealed, I want her, but it was immediately just trash. Where
and there's also and I look, if I'm wrong here, just stop me, Aaron, but there is a way that it's also endearing if it's done in jest as opposed to as completely done as targeting, right? Yeah. Like I don't want to look, if I'm going way out of line, you got to stop me when I'm going way out of line here, Aaron. But if you know, you playfully jest about Reed Duke and how pretty and gorgeous he is, because he's pretty and gorgeous, and we talk about good-looking Magic players,
sure,
and we talk about good-looking people, and you know, stuff like that all the time. There is a way to do it where it's fun and everyone's in on the joke.
Yeah,
this was not that.
No.
And so I always, and I've said this on this show many, many, many times, if you're going to be funny, you can be another thing. Like, but you got to be over 50% funny. Because if you're 49% funny, you're 100% the other thing. Yep. And that's just a rule of comedy. That's just how it works. You got to work on it. And just be funnier. Like, if the joke is good and then everyone can be in on it, then that's great. I agree that we can have those kind of adult conversations. But we also need to have a bottom baseline where we can't have those kind of conversations anymore.
So Travis made a few videos. He and best I can figure, what he kind of does is he records himself maybe on hikes or something. because that's what it sounds like. It sounds like he's walking on a trail or something. And it's great. Look, because when you hear him, he's like, much love, all about the positivity. And I'm like, but you're shitlords, and like, so, and he kind of goes on and explain that, he doesn't have any notifications set up. He doesn't even have a Facebook feed. Who knows what's going on in this crazy Wild West place that I made. And that's weird because you foster. But then
don't you see him keeping up with Patreon and saying thank you to Patreon followers? Like, it's kind of like that theory of like your boyfriend doesn't text you, but you see him tweeting and you're like,
what? Why? And then, so at the end of all this, I swear to God, at the end of all this, he then promotes his 1-year life transformation video course. Dude, are you kidding me? Woo! I almost look. The man's got to do what a man's got to do. I mean, and
maybe this was all the plan. Maybe the plan was to put all of these personalities together, let them fester, let them get as terrible as possible, and then redeem them with his new life program, which you can buy for $24.99. Like,
I'm just, because I feel like it always feels like he's trying to come from the right place, but then he just does it all wrong, and he just doesn't stop doing it wrong, and it's really weird to me because he's all about this love and all about this positivity, and then he's just like, let me foster the most disgusting crap I possibly can, but we're gonna do it for the lols, y'all. And I'm just, I can't. It's really weird to me. It's like I'm choking on irony over here, and so, okay, sure. Well, now we're starting to, the circle has widened so far that today we got an article on Polygon.com, a very, very large news website.
Kotaku happened first, but that's fine.
And Kotaku did happen first, but Kotaku happened on the Australian one, so, we're gonna say that it wasn't the main Kotaku.
Sure,
so if anyone cares,
God.
We also hit the
Australians. I love you.
Oh, I'm not saying anything about Australia. What I'm saying is, Polygon.
This whole issue also hit the front page of Reddit for quite a while.
Oh yeah,
the front page of the internet. You may have heard of it. And so yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
So anyway, so forgive me. It was not trying to lessen to Kotaku's influence, let alone our Australian friends. There was an article on Kotaku that tried to sort of lay it out.
You get so much hate mail from Australia now.
I know, right? I'm so screwed.
You do. I love Australia.
I also love Australians. I'm sorry. All right. So anyway, you see what happened there? I screwed that up, and I apologize. That's weird. That's a thing that happens in this world. All right. So right, I screwed that up, and I'm sorry. Okay. So anyway, so they tried to kind of sort of go over the thing, and then they quote some Jimmy Wong stuff, they quote Eric Froelich, and then Wizards of the Coast and whatnot, and they kind of end sort of close to on the professor's video, and Unsleeved Media's response was to call the video unsubstantiated lies. The video had nothing but your clips and your screenshots. I'm not sure where the lies were, but I think there's somewhere. They're not there. They're just not there.
I need to explain that real quick. I need to explain what's happening there. That is Jeremy knowing that people aren't actually clicking on the video. They're only clicking on the article because people who listen to his opinions will accept whatever Jeremy says about it because it's about him, and without fact checking it. That is another tactic. This is very similar to another tactic that's basically is. So I've been linking this comic all day. It's called Sea Lioning. If you are unfamiliar, get familiar with Sea Lioning. It comes from a comic that I've shared on my Twitter a number of times, in which you bring up an opinion, and someone comes at you and says, "What are your bases for that opinion? Why do you what?" They come at you in sort of a way that is feigning interest in learning about your side of the story, and no matter what or how that conversation develops, it always devolves into more and more fact checking and more challenging of fact and more challenging of reality. Without ever actually considering the side. And this is a very similar kind of tactic here, where he is signaling to his base, this is bad, without saying this is bad. And everyone who's on this side of the argument knows, because we watched the video of what the content is, that's hooey, but it doesn't matter. because it's what Jeremy
and I believe
said about
that
a friend of mine.
Go ahead.
A friend of mine had posted a meme of like not a meme, but a friend of mine had posted a Facebook post of like a script of usually how this goes, and it says, "What's everyone talking about? Can someone give me a link?" Someone gives him a link. Well, I just want to see the whole thing in context and find out everything. Is there a link? Yeah, we gave you a link. Well, I clicked on that, and it says a few things, but that's not harassment. Yeah, that's basically what harassment is. But what about freedom of speech? Okay, so this is freedom of speech. There's the cartoon. Well, I think the problem is now that people are sensitive. Well, it's not really up to you to determine that. Whatever, y'all love playing the victim. So then you start blocking the person, and then it's, why am I being attacked? This is dumb. And it's like, that's usually the decline of how this thing goes. Like, it's a script that is followed to the T by a lot of people.
It basically devolves, is the way that I put it up, and it devolves rather quickly. So so ultimately, and now there's, and now I think to sort of to frame it sort of from Jeremy's point of view is that now he's getting a lot of hate. He is getting a lot of people very angry at him, sending him scary messages. Exactly.
And this is a big problem because now we're becoming the monsters that we seek to fight against. And we can't, and in that respect, he's right. Because we cannot allow ourselves to do that. No. And if he is actually receiving actual death threats, which I don't doubt, and harassment, which is 100% a thing that's happening, because I've seen it, then that's a problem.
Right, and I want to make it clear, like, Jeremy, I don't want them to do that to you. No. I don't think that's right. I don't think, you don't fight fire with fire. We're not going to make our monster versus your monster. That's not how this is going to work. I do think this is a lot of reaping what you have sown for so long, in that, people were kind of ignoring it, and now that they're paying attention to it, they're reacting in the wrong way. And there's this weird kind of narrative of him saying things like, well, because someone watched the professor's video and said something mean to me, now the professor has to come and apologize for that person because the professor doesn't believe in personal responsibility or something ridiculous. It doesn't make any damn sense, because the professor said don't do that. I said don't do that. We just said don't do that. Please don't be what we're not trying to be.
This isn't coding. This is, I think the kids call this dead ass. Dead ass, don't do this. Right? I don't know. I'm pretty sure that's proper usage of dead ass.
Oh my God.
You'll have to ask one of your #5kids.
Yes, I'm going to have to figure it out. Because
I'm pretty sure that's what that means. Seriously, don't do it.
No.
It's don't do that, please. It's bad. It's bad for everybody involved, and it's dumb, and it's crazy. So that's kind of where he's at, is where he is, actively getting threats. He's screenshotted them. He's shown them in his videos. I believe that they are real. He's not making them up. And a lot of them definitely feel like, well, this is some of the stuff that the people who you target, they also get these things. You may not see it. They may not be publicized. They may not be shoved in your face. They may not have their own video made about them, but they can still exist. And even if your video is 6 months old, people can still go back and watch it today, like it happened today, because if it's new to you, like you don't really know the passage of time. If someone is, looking for CSprankle videos or looking for see people talking about her, and they found this and they decided that they too wanted to go crap on her because she's not pretty enough for your standards, or she's just doing this thing because 14-year-old boys like cosplay and nobody else on the face of this planet, including Rolling Frigging Stone, cares about cosplay. For God's sake. That whole narrative is weird. It's just the fact that, again, if you're targeting a certain person, then that person is going to get the blowback that you may not understand that you are building against them.
And the last thing on this particular topic I will say is that, like we've said at many points, this is fueled on different sides by different things. And one of the things that fuels trolls and fuels Jeremy and fuels this issue in particular, unfortunately, we are also feeding by even talking about it. And I, of course, we get that. However, this is what the Magic community is talking about this week. This is all they've talked about. Exactly.
Right.
And spoiler alert, we're going over, folks, by the way. So, make some tea. But this is,
find some shade.
Exactly. Well, there you go. Exactly. But this is yeah, and it's unfortunate that there is no way to draw attention to the issue without drawing attention to the issue.
Well, this was the part where, you know, you said for years, don't feed the trolls. And
yeah,
I'm all about that life, buddy. I'm all about it. And I was all about it until this point. And yes, I know there's some people who said, look, Evan, why did it take this? Well, it always takes something. I too wish I could have been more proactive if I felt like it would have made a huge difference. Yes, it's unbelievably crappy that it took Christine to stop doing what she's doing for everyone to be like, whoa, 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 this has just gone too far. And that sucks. But here we are. And this BS that's happened over the years has to be addressed. It needs to stop. And it just we just need some reason back in this world. If
I ever brought back the Newsening, the Newsening's tagline was "Don't feed the trolls."
Right.
It doesn't work anymore. It doesn't. It's just that is an outdated tagline. So
yeah, I mean, it's
I would
like
have
I
to
said
come up
earlier.
with something new.
It's like I said earlier in the show, you know, I personally have been experiencing things like this for about 2 years, going on 3 years now. And, you know, as somebody who's tried that, you know, like I said, I can go through the checklist of everything I've done. I tried staying out of conversations, hoping that it might minimize the impact. I've certainly, you guys like to joke about how tight my social media presence is and all my filters I have. It's because of things like this. I would love to have a completely open Twitter and respond to everybody who tweets at me and follow back everybody who tweets at me. I would love to have a personality page. I'm a pretty open person, and these are things that I feel I can't do because of the past 2 years, because this is what I've had to do to just keep my head above water. And it would be nice to, if this is just satire, if this is just a joke, if this is just a big troll, I feel like we should be able to opt out of it. We should be able to say, this has been fun, but I can't do this anymore. And the fact that we've consistently said, Emma, Daniela, myself, Gabby, the fact that we've adamantly said, I don't want to play this anymore. I'm really not doing this anymore. And we're being pulled, no, you're doing this. It's not okay.
Yeah, and it's gotten to the point where people have come to me and said, like, Evan, why are you doing this? Like, you didn't, necessarily have to do. I was like, I have to do this. I was like, I can't. It's gone on too much. This has gone too far. Like, yeah, they're coming after me personally because that's all they got. Because everything I said as an argument to them, they're ignoring. They're not paying attention, and that's if that's the best they got.
It's not like they're saying I didn't do this and you're an adulterer. It's just you're an adulterer. They're not even addressing what's going on. Like, you can do both. And you're right. It goes straight to that. And how many times have I checked in on you, Evan, in the last 24 hours? Because I know what it's like to have that attention on you. And it's terrifying, quite frankly. Social media in general trickles in. Anybody who has a following, you get like a couple notifications. You get a couple likes there. But the professor brought it up in his video. It's very harrowing. You just know, like, you'll be having a perfectly average day, and all of a sudden you've got 35 waifus with 5 followers and no identifying details storming your mentions. Your phone is going off. It's very disconcerting. And I can't tell you how many times I've had to give the pep talk to somebody. There was a young man last night who goes by the name of the Manaleek. Leek. I guess he has been garnering some attention, and he didn't know what to do. I followed that man. I sent him a DM, and I'm like, all right, let's get to work. This is what you need to do. You need to block, you need to mute. This is what you need to do. People don't know how to do that. They've never had to deal with that before. And when you've never experienced that, surge in notification, the emails from strangers, if you have Google Alert set up, God help you, it is scary. Like, to go from no activity or low activity to peak. Like, I don't care who you are. Nobody's built to process all of those things going off at the same time. And I look forward to the day where I don't have to give that pep talk of this is what you need to do, because...
Well, I'll note that we're lucky enough to have Christine Sprankle and coincidentally Jeremy. How you doing, buddy? In the chat right now.
I don't want to alarm everyone.
And I'm not trying to alarm.
I tried to not. I didn't want to.
And it's fine. It's fine.
I guess people listen to us later too.
And they do. But ultimately,
and I'm glad that people come to us for their news, even when they are the news. But yeah, I was trying to not.
No, it's not that.
That's why I didn't announce it when it.
Right. But a point she made, I wanted to point out. And this is another narrative of all of this is done because Christine just wants your money. If you could just, pay her some more attention and give her some more Patreon dollars, That's really what she's after here. Okay, so Christine says, as I said on my Patreon, I am taking all my new pledges this month from this, matching it and donating it. This isn't about my Patreon. So congratulations, that narrative too has died. And maybe if you had spoken to her or talked to her like a real person, you would have figured that out. But
well, I also think it's disingenuous
happen.
to criticize somebody for having a Patreon when you yourself are making pretty decent money on your Patreon. I could see if somebody was a starving artist and they were on a WordPress blog and they had nothing and they wanted to come for creators. But when you yourself have a Patreon, a very healthy Patreon, I don't understand how you can make that argument, because you yourself benefit from that system as well. You are no different. We're no different.
We're no different. And I see no problem with that. I mean, look, people want to support us. We love you. We thank you very much. I try to give them, we give them extra content so they can see the behind the scenes. They can see the sausage being made and know that about 30 minutes of the show, we're just like, okay, how are we going to make all this work again?
No idea what we're actually.
Ruben's giving his bad date stories. I'm peeing too loud. I mean, like, the behind the scenes is everything. Like, you're missing out.
That was a good Patreon.
The turd burger only gets juicier in the not safe for work part of the show. That said, so ultimately, we're going to leave it at that. I wanted to get to just a handful of small topics to maybe not talk 100% about this for literally every moment.
For this week, because this is not over yet, and I'm sorry for those fans of ours who are tired of hearing about these sorts of issues, but this is our show, and this is what we're talking about, and and unfortunately, this is not the end. We're not summarizing the entirety of the story.
Right.
This has only been 4 days.
This is the story. This is the story so far.
7 years.
I know.
As these things can do.
This episode started.
Right. So we're definitely going to leave it right here. I try to want to sort of give you guys an idea, scope for those. The reason I wanted to make the show in the first place was I wanted something that people could listen to say, oh, that's what's happening in Magic right now. Whether new release, whether it's a silly drama piece, where there's a Wizards thing, or it's a Judge thing, or there's something that happened on Kotaku about Magic. Maybe they don't know that. So we're going to leave it here. We're going to move on a little bit here. And I guess we'll just go ahead and go to gather the townsfolk, because why not? They're
here.
Since we're just chilling. I do wanted to point out something very, very positive. Our friend of the show, MTG Youngmage, who is one of the cutie McCutersons, and he did an Epilepsy Foundation fundraiser, raised over $2,000. He did an amazing thing. I'll put the link in the description of the show. I'm putting the link in the Twitch chat and the YouTube chat in case you guys want to check him out. He's trying his hardest, by God, and I know it's not easy these days to start from zero, and try to get a big subscriber base. So, and
friendly reminder, he also streams with his dad quite frequently. They do a lot of streams of them playing at their kitchen table. They are just great, and I'm so behind everything they do, and just cute as a button.
There was a new daily MTG redesign, which they had talked about us, many weeks before it actually happened, and now it's kind of here. And I'm personally hoping that it gets a little bit more content. I feel like it's a little bit content light. I don't know what is going on with that font at the top of the new daily MTG. I don't know if you've seen it.
I don't know what that is.
It's weird.
Very iRobot Ex Machina. I'm not really sure.
Aaron. Brace yourself. That's a Chris Cox situation. That's a Microsoft Word font.
I mean,
choice.
I'm normally loath to blame the Cox, but in this case, I will blame the Cox.
Especially on the internet.
I'm curious how long that one lasts, but anyway, I think there's a lot of really cool widgets. I think they did a great job on counting down the days until a certain thing was happening. I think that looks great. Showcasing products, podcasts that Wizards makes, all that good stuff. There's some definite positives here, but there's also, I think, that the loss of, there was sort of a voice that was telling you, hey, here's what we at Wizards saw in the community today, and you should check that out. And for things like, they would say what you should watch, and they're like, hey, Magic Mike's is on tonight. I love that, obviously. And, and that was cool to say, like, hey, the VSL is on tonight. Well, they don't really have anything like that. They got like, well, here's some videos that we've embedded into a certain frame that looks.
It feels very robotic or very sterile. Like, you need to watch these things today. LOL. Just
right. It just lost, I think, some of its humanity, I guess, is a way to put it. And I miss that.
Tears. Sorry, I had to speaking of bots, which we didn't really.
No. All right, moving on here. Want to do a little bit of splash damage. Ruben, tell us about D&D.
Well, D&D, otherwise known as Dungeons and Dragons, is perhaps better known as the only hobby nerdier than Magic the Gathering, is having a resurgence. And this week, Chris Perkins, who is one of the main story editors, big folks at Wizards of the Coast who designs the 5th edition of Dungeons and Dragons, tweeted out that 2017 has been Dungeons and Dragons' most successful year in the 20 years that he's been with the company.
Nice.
Dungeons and Dragons, for those of you who don't necessarily pay attention to that particular branch of geekdom, I know we all come from different places. That's where I came from. D&D is having a hell of a resurgence. I mean, it's not just Stranger Things. I think
that's a big part of it. I would say
Stranger Things is a big part of it. And by the way, Magic the Gathering really missed the boat because the writers of Stranger Things admitted that they thought about using magic as the motif, but it didn't occur early enough. It wasn't invented until the early 90s. And so we could have that Stranger Things wave. We could have that Bob Newby hero arc in our game, but don't, hashtag, justice for Barb and all that goodness. But the point is that Dungeons and Dragons, partially thanks to Stranger Things, but also live streaming of role-playing games is at an all-time high. It really started with shows like Nerd Poker, hosted originally by Brian Posehn, and Acquisitions Incorporated, which is the Penny Arcade folks, Jerry Holkins and company. But over the past year, shows like Critical Role, which is on Geek and Sundry, and a bunch of official shows on
Harmon
the D&D.
Quest?
Harmon Quest is another huge one that has taken off. It's on It's like the biggest thing on CISO, as far as I can tell.
What is CISO?
CISO is another streaming site. It's another pay monthly subscription content provider.
Okay.
And they make good stuff. And then there's the Adventure Zone podcast, which is another big one. But all of these are sort of coming together, and there is definitely a resurgence in interest in Dungeons and Dragons. And so if you've never really gotten into it, or it's like not your flavor of nerd, 5th edition's a really good way to get into it. It's sort of very natural. It doesn't really feel like you're playing a game. It feels like group storytelling that uses math as a storytelling tool, but it feels much more natural than 4th or 3.5 if you went back in time and played any of those. And it's not just D&D. Lots of other games have started having really popular shows being streamed on Twitch as well. So I just thought it was really exciting that this hobby, where I came from, I mean, I came to Magic from D&D. That's why, literally that is my genesis. Is I started playing D&D and then got interested in Magic because I started in D&D.
But didn't you say your parents met at a D&D game?
No, they played in the same D&D group together before they started dating.
Okay.
Wow.
So they are old school.
So D&D was literally your genesis.
I've been playing NPCs since I was like 4. So I was literally born into D&D. Yeah.
The one and only time I played D&D, I was a rogue, and we were in a castle somewhere, or like a dungeon, and I thought I was going to be really shifty and like climb the wall to get away from it. Yeah, the Triceratops charged into the wall and killed me. So
all people think that their D&D groups are going to start out and they're going to be Mission Impossible team, and they all end up like Monty Python. Like that's just how the story goes.
That's true.
And it's great. And it's group storytelling, and it's just a fun interactive thing that you can do with your friends and learn more about them. And how they tell stories, and have something to do that isn't just watching television. It's really just a delightful thing to have come back.
Well, one of the things I wanted to touch on, we'll move on here to Blast from the Past, because again, I feel like we need to keep on the positivity train. And there was a terrific new episode of what's called MTG Breakdown Rewind, which is a show from Marshall Sutcliffe, where he takes classic matches and or classic moments in Magic, sits down with someone who has some attachment to it or was involved in it. And the most recent one was Randy Buehler at Pro Tour Chicago 1997. And I'm putting the link here in the different chats, and that'll be in the show notes, so you guys can go check them out. But the MTG Rewind series is really fun, really cool, and I thought it was a fantastic concept, and Marshall did a great job with it.
It's such a cool concept. And this episode in particular with Randy was fabulous because it's so old. You know, you hear stories about necropotents, but you don't get to hear them from the source while you're watching them happen, right? Like, there's something lost there. And watching Randy go back and watch his younger, college Randy Buehler play Necro in his first Pro Tour, there's something just visceral about that, and I just love this series. And I think it's just a brilliant idea from Marshall, wonderfully executed. It's just a home run all the way around.
Yeah, he was so young in that video. We did a little bit of the VSL coverage last time. I was like, Randy, who is that little boy? And then to see them play with no sleeves, they're shuffling dual lands, tigers,
black bordered,
no sleeves, no play mats. They're playing on just this really shifty looking tablecloth. Not even we're very used to feature matches having the feature match play mat or the feature match table setting. Oh no, they're playing on just a table in a room, and
with
it's like
a tablecloth. Sure. Because they couldn't use sleeves, even though they did use sleeves back then. The rocks were soft, but we still use sleeves. But they couldn't use them because of the cameras.
It
was too much glare. So they're like, you got to unsleeve your beta duels or whatever.
And the more things change, the more things change, the more they stay the same.
I know, right? Well, nowadays we have matte sleeves, which is a big help.
Well, you say that, but
we're going to move. We're going to turn the corner to the finisher. Last week was Thanksgiving in these United States, a holiday where we as Americans gather with our loved ones to review the good that has happened in our lives over the last year. So I think it might be nice to end this week's episode by asking, what are you thankful for this Thanksgiving 2017, Ruben?
Well, in addition to all of the other things that we've talked about, at the beginning of this episode, I'm thankful for my loving and supportive family, my amazing friends and fans. I'm thankful for artists who starve and strive for their art. And I'm thankful for Lightning Strike coming back to standard.
Very nice. Jesus. It's the important things, buddy. It's the important things.
Yeah, I saved the best for last.
Aaron?
Well, I'm thankful for my awesome boyfriend, my great new job, for outspoken and proud voices, and these epic cheekbones.
Hey!
Now with better lighting.
Yeah.
100% better lighting. I am thankful for my beautiful family, #5kids, my great support system at home and at my job, which is amazing. Diet Cherry Pepsi, I don't know if you knew this, it is the choice of this generation.
It is unreal how much Diet Cherry Pepsi he drinks.
I love Diet Cherry. Look, there have been rumors that they might get rid of it, at which point I have literally figured out if I can get a storage unit and get a couple pallets and keep them, I'm going cold storage. I'm going full Fallout.
Not sponsored content either.
Absolutely not. Just telling you, me and Diet Cherry Pepsi go a long way back. But most of all, I'm thankful that this episode's over and I can go take a nap.
Yeah.
I'm tired.
I retweet that sentiment.
Oh, man. And I also note that thanks everyone for showing up. We had almost 1,000 viewers between YouTube and Twitch tonight, so that's pretty incredible.
Yes, thank you so much. And I especially want to thank Jeremy and Christine for showing up in Twitch chat. I thought that was unique and interesting and not disruptive. I was very pleased with how, and I also want to send a huge shout out to all of our new mods.
Mm-hmm.
Who came in on like a minute's notice. Like we were literally tweeting people during the pre-show and saying, are you conscious? Are you decent? Yeah. Pick up a sword.
Right.
Let's do this.
Because without you, you make all the things possible, and he who wields the hammer, must be worthy, etc. So thank you so much to all you guys.
So that ends another episode of Magic Mics. Thank you for joining us here to discuss all things Magic. Thank you, Aaron.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks, Ruben.
Thank you, Evan.
And we're going to head to our final slide. I want to thank our sponsor, CoolStuffInc.com, our co-sponsor, CardHoarder.com, my co-hosts, Aaron Campbell and Ruben Bressler, you guys for watching, and hope you support us at patreon.com/magicmics. Visit our website at magicmicspodcast.com that exists thanks to our Patreon supporters, or follow, like, tweet, favorite, share, subscribe, do everything social that tells people we exist. Catch us online at twitch.tv/magicmics, on Twitter at magicmicescast, on Reddit at reddit.com/r/magicmics, on Facebook at facebook.com/magicmics. Talk to us privately at magicmicspodcast@gmail.com. Follow the audio-only podcast at magicmicspodcast.libsyn.com, or find us on iTunes, or join us here next week, same time, same place, for another episode of Magic Mics. Good night, everybody.